Pigs, blood, death. It sounds like a horror movie, but we're talking today about the miracles of Jesus. Even if those images sound unsettling, they may have something very important to teach us. Hi, I'm Justin Lee, and this is A Year of Bible. Well, we're coming to the end of our first week of readings. Remember, we're doing 5 days a week, and this is our 5th day, so how are you doing so far? I hope you're enjoying this study. I know I am. Today we're reading Mark chapter 5, where Jesus is performing miracles. Let's jump in. On the other side of the sea, they arrived in the region of the Gerasenes. As soon as Jesus got out of the boat, he was met by a man with an unclean spirit who was coming from the tombs. This man had been living in the tombs and could no longer be restrained, even with chains. Though he was often bound with chains and shackles, he had broken the chains and shattered the shackles. Now there was no one with the strength to subdue him. Night and day in the tombs and in the mountains, he kept crying out and cutting himself with stones. When the man saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees before him, and he shouted in a loud voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you before God not to torture me." For Jesus had already declared, "Come out of this man, you unclean spirit." "What is your name?" Jesus asked. "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus repeatedly not to send them out of that region. There, on the nearby hillside, a large herd of pigs was feeding. So the demons begged Jesus, "Send us to the pigs so that we may enter them." He gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out and went into the pigs, and the herd of about 2,000 rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it described what had happened to the demon-possessed man and also to the pigs, and the people began to beg Jesus to leave their region. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed by the demons begged to go with him, but Jesus would not allow him. "Go home to your own people," he said, "and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and what mercy he has shown you." So the man went away and began to proclaim throughout the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. When Jesus had again crossed by boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him beside the sea. A synagogue leader named Jairus arrived, and seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded with him urgently, "My little daughter is near death. Please come and place your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years. She had borne much agony under the care of many physicians, and had spent all she had, but to no avail. Instead, her condition had only grown worse. When the woman heard about Jesus, she came up through the crowd behind him and touched his cloak. For she kept saying, "If only I touch his garments, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. At once, Jesus was aware that power had gone out from him. Turning to the crowd, he asked, "Who touched my garments?" His disciples answered, "You can see the crowd pressing in on you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept looking around to see who had done this. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him, trembling in fear, and she told him the whole truth. "Daughter," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free of your affliction." While he was still speaking, messengers from the house of Jairus arrived and said, "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" But Jesus overheard their conversation and said to Jairus, "Do not be afraid, just believe." And he did not allow anyone to accompany him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw the commotion and the people weeping and wailing loudly. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they laughed at him. After he had put them all outside, he took the child's father and mother and his own companions and went in to see the child. Taking her by the hand, Jesus said, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately, the girl got up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, and at once they were utterly astounded. Then Jesus gave strict orders that no one should know about this, and he told them to give her something to eat. I don't know about you, but as an animal lover, I find it hard to read this passage without becoming fixated on the fate of the pigs. Are you with me? Every time I read this, my first reaction is, poor pigs. What did they do to deserve this? And why did Jesus allow the demons to go into the pigs anyway? Wasn't there a better option? I am not going to pretend to have answers to those questions. But let's take a step back and see if we can uncover a bit of why this unsettling story is here. Jesus performs 3 miracles in this passage, and each one of them tells us something different about him. First, we've got this story about the man possessed by so many demons that they call themselves Legion. And yes, this story has inspired many fiction writers, but honestly, what a horrifying concept. Being possessed by one demon sounds more than terrifying enough, but a whole legion of them? And the pigs part of the story just underscores how far gone this guy was. Jesus was Jewish, of course, and for Jews, pigs were unclean animals. So for Jesus to allow the demons to go from this person to the unclean pigs is symbolic. But notice 2 things. First, there are approximately 2,000 pigs who get possessed by the demons. How many demons did this guy have? Really? And second, what happens as soon as the pigs are possessed? The demons immediately drive them down to their own destruction. Again, this is symbolic. If that's what the demons did to the pigs, what horrible things did they have in mind for this man? How far down had they already driven him? Evil, sin, drives us to our own destruction. Temptation promises us good things, but once we give in to evil, it ultimately destroys us, right? And if you think back to the wrong choices you've made in your own life, and we have all made wrong choices, you know that's true. And sometimes your own sin can make you feel trapped with no way out. But part of the point of this miracle, I think, is that no one is too far gone. This guy was possessed by apparently thousands of demons, all bent on his destruction, and yet they were zero match for Jesus. There's this idea in popular culture that God and the devil, or Jesus and the devil, are equally matched, polar opposites, like yin and yang locked in an eternal battle of some sort, but that's not the image in the Bible at all. Evil has no power over Jesus. The moment Jesus enters the scene, these demons know all they can do is beg for mercy. They literally ask permission to go enter the pigs. So to me, this is a story about Jesus' power over evil. It's a story that says to me, you are never beyond the reach of God's mercy. You could have a life full of sin. You could be possessed by 2,000 demons, and God can cleanse you in an instant. Don't count yourself out. Okay, so what does it take to be cleansed? Well, we see that in the very next story. This woman has a physical affliction. She's been bleeding for 12 years. And although the text doesn't go into detail, many scholars believe this is talking about a menstrual disorder, which would have kept this woman in a perpetual state of being ritually unclean according to Levitical law. In other words, not only had she been in a lot of physical pain for 12 years, but she was probably also a social outcast. So she's dealing with physical pain, social and emotional pain, financial pain because she spent all her money on doctors who couldn't help, spiritual pain, being cut off from her religious community. I mean, this woman is at the end of her rope. So again, we're not just talking about someone who's a little sick and Jesus heals them. We're talking about a woman who is suffering in just about every way you can suffer, experiencing a life that is just constant agony on so many levels. And again, in an instant, she's made well. And also, I love that we get some humor in the middle of this tearjerker story with the disciples going, "What do you mean, who touched me? Dude, you're in the middle of a packed crowd. This is a Tokyo subway level crowd. This is New Year's Eve in Times Square. This is fireworks at the Magic Kingdom. Who touched me? Everyone." But Jesus stops in the middle of this busy crowd because he cares about this woman. Even though, or maybe because, she is an outcast and a woman with low status, he makes time for her. And again, in a way, she represents all of us. If he makes time for her, he makes time for us. And notice what he says to her. "Daughter, your faith has healed you." What does it take to be cleansed? What does it take to be made whole in the sight of God? Just faith. Faith in Jesus. So we've seen Jesus' power over evil, and we've seen Jesus' power over suffering, but then in the final miracle of the chapter, we see something that will become important for the rest of Christian theology. Jesus' power over death. So no matter how much evil is in your heart, you are not beyond the reach of Jesus. No matter how terrible things are in your life, you are not beyond the reach of Jesus. And even when you are dead and buried, you are not beyond the reach of Jesus. It is so easy for us to read these stories as just evidence that Jesus could perform miracles. And they certainly are that, but the disciples would later perform miracles. And there were rumors in the ancient world of other people performing miracles. What we've got here is so much more. What we've got here is Jesus freeing people from the bonds of evil, washing away anything that would make them unclean, and taking away even the power and finality of death. It's all setting us up for what Christians would later come to understand about Jesus, that he wasn't just a great teacher or some random miracle worker, but something more, someone more, with the power to bring us all back to God, no matter what else seemed to be in the way.